All right, everyone, grab a seat and let's get started. Welcome, undergraduate literature class, to today's explainer. Gather around because today we are stepping straight into the chilling, atmospheric winds of a genuinely grim, dark Gothic fable. We're going to explore a deeply Nietzschean philosophical tale about what it means to take the absolute worst of human suffering. You know, the biting cold, the isolation, the sheer crushing weight of existence, and literally transmute it into a masterpiece. This is the story of the Wanderer, a figure who learns to read the world not as some rigid set of rules to blindly follow, but as raw, unformed material just waiting to be rewritten.
Okay, let's dive into this course syllabus real quick to set up our three-act theatrical arc. First, we're looking at the tragic philologist. Second, Valley versus the mountain. Third, the grammar of suffering. Fourth, the architect of negation. And finally, number 5, a theatrical cosmic ascension.
Starting right off with Section 1, the tragic philologist, the frozen spine of exile. So, picture our protagonist, the Wanderer. He is definitely not sitting in a comfortable armchair by a roaring fire. He is standing upon the frozen spine of the highest, most jagged mountain peak imaginable. The air up here is incredibly thin. Honestly, it is far too thin for the comforting, warm illusions that the rest of humanity relies on. He's in total exile, surrounded by this silent vacuum. And to survive this terrifying environment, well, he has to evolve. He becomes what the text calls a tragic philologist. Now, philology is typically the study of language and how texts develop over time, but the Wanderer isn't reading books up here. He's reading his own existence. He no longer seeks a permanent, static home or looks up to the heavens for some divine commandment to obey. Instead, he looks at the grim reality around him and treats his suffering as a living, shifting text. He realizes that if he's going to survive the cold, he must become the solitary author of his own meaning.
Let's move to Section 2 and see how this builds. Valley versus the mountain, contrasting textual worlds.
To really physically ground ourselves in this stark contrast, take a look at the difference between these two environments. On the left, we have the Valley of Scholars. This is exactly where the Wanderer came from. The valley is safe, sure, but it is entirely suffocating. The people down there mistake what we'd call dead syntax, inherited morality, static laws, ancient illusions, for the actual pulse of life. They just repeat whatever they're told. But over on the right, up in the mountains of the Wanderer, the reality there is dangerous, it's dynamic, it's a shifting landscape, a silent vacuum. It is a living text that constantly challenges him, demanding that he actively interpret and shape it, rather than just blindly obeying those dead rules of the valley below.
Moving right along to Section 3, the grammar of suffering, transmuting the literal.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how it ushers us into Act 2 of our fable, where the Wanderer learns his core philosophical lesson. It's all about how to take raw physical pain and turn it into a symbol. All that is transitory is only a symbol. I want you to really feel the weight of that statement. This is the ultimate philological maxim. When the Wanderer finally accepts this, he absolutely strips the terrifying material world of its power. Those jagged peaks, the deep ravines, the crushing storms, they lose their literal crushing weight. They are no longer physical prisons designed to break him. They just become temporary markers. They are symbolic landscapes on his grander spiritual journey.
So how does he actually pull this off? It's through a process of etymological untangling. Step 1. He strips his physical obstacles of their perceived permanence. They aren't forever, they're just current conditions. Step 2, and this is absolutely vital, he looks at his past errors, his exhausting failures, and his deep guilt. Actually, scratch the idea of viewing them as static sins, permanently written in some eternal ledger. He repurposes them. They become his rough draft, his raw, poetic metaphors. And step 3, he takes his own mortal limitations, his human insufficiency, and elevates them into an aesthetic necessity. His suffering literally becomes the vital artistic resistance he needs to sculpt his own sovereign meaning. He is actively editing the text of his life.
Which brings us to Section 4, the architect of negation, the grammar of friction.
Every Gothic fable needs its dark shadow, its punctuation, right? If the Wanderer is rewriting his life, he needs a force pushing back against him. Enter the architect of negation, often personified in these types of texts as Mephistopheles. In a traditional, run-of-the-mill story, this would just be the villain, the devil you have to defeat. But in our philological parable, the architect of negation is not a cosmic enemy, not at all. He's an irreplaceable, functional gear in the machine of the Wanderer's life. He provides the threads of temptation, the dark disruptions. He acts as the essential friction and the completely unintended catalyst that actually drives the protagonist's narrative forward.
Because think about it. Without this dark, disruptive metaphor, the text of life just becomes stagnant.
Negation prevents the wanderer's story from falling into the lazy, comfortable slumbers of a finished chapter. If everything is perfectly fine, the story ends. There's no growth. The suffering, the temptation, the pushback, this is the vital artistic resistance that is absolutely necessary for the wanderer's evolution. The darkness isn't there to destroy him. It is there to force him to keep writing.
So, the crucial point is right here in Section 5, a theatrical cosmic ascension, the final act.
You see, this struggle was never meant to be cured by just giving up and retreating back to the warm herd in the valley. Instead, imagine the curtains parting for the climax of our fable. The wanderer doesn't find some static heaven. He ascends into a triumphant, fluid dance with the universe itself. The chorus mysticus rises all around him, bringing this incredibly visceral, tragic resonance of primal forces. And here, his relentless, aggressive masculine striving is finally perfectly balanced by the creative gravity of the eternal feminine. In this breathtaking theatrical moment, the wanderer just drops his armor. He lets go of his defensive isolation completely.
And this brilliantly illustrates our ultimate conclusion. The agonizing friction of his existence, the freezing cold, the guilt, the negation, it's all distilled into a grand cosmic symphony. Life is justified through this very act of creative transmutation. The wanderer doesn't just author a text anymore. He becomes the text. He transforms into a completely self-contained work of art.
So, class, as the dark clouds of our Gothic fable begin to close and the stage fades to black, I want to turn this philological lens back onto you. Take a hard look at the essential friction in your own narrative. What dead syntax in the text of your own life must be violently untangled today and transmuted into a powerful, living symbol? Something to think about. Class dismissed.